Apple is quietly making one of its biggest iPhone moves in years, and it's all about the long-rumored foldable iPhone, a device that could debut as the iPhone Ultra. According to a new supply chain report from Nikkei Asia, Apple has instructed key suppliers to prepare for production of around 10 million foldable iPhones in 2026. That's a notable jump from the earlier expectation of roughly 7 to 8 million units that was circulating just a few months ago. And that increase matters because Apple doesn't raise targets unless it believes the product is finally ready, and demand could actually be there. Here's the bigger picture. Apple has reportedly already booked components for approximately 80 million smartphones for the second half of 2026. That batch is said to include the iPhone 18 Pro, the iPhone 18 Pro Max, and Apple's first ever foldable iPhone. In total, Apple's full-year iPhone production for 2026 is expected to surpass 220 million units. If those numbers sound aggressive, that's because they are, and Apple may be using its unmatched purchasing power to pull ahead while rivals play defense. The report suggests Apple is in a stronger position than competitors like Xiaomi, Oppo, and Vivo, which have allegedly reduced annual production targets to below 100 million units each. One major factor behind those cuts is said to be an industry-wide memory shortage, which puts even more leverage in Apple's hands as it locks in supply early. In fact, some suppliers have reportedly been told to be ready for orders of up to 85 million new iPhones in the second half of 2026 alone. And here's an interesting detail. Apple is also said to be asking suppliers to reserve iPhone 17 components for the upcoming iPhone 18 lineup. That kind of crossover planning is a strong hint that Apple is trying to stabilize supply, reduce risk, and keep production flexible, especially if the foldable iPhone ramps slower than expected at launch. And yes, the foldable iPhone ramp is the big question. The report claims engineering issues connected to the foldable iPhone hinge have now been resolved. That's huge, because the hinge is the make-or-break component in any foldable phone. It affects durability, thickness, weight, and whether the display can fold smoothly without stress. But even with those problems reportedly fixed, the same report suggests Apple may still launch with a relatively small initial shipment. The likely reason is simple. Foldables are harder to manufacture at scale, and Apple tends to prioritize quality control over shipping massive volumes on day one. A larger production run may not kick in until later in the year, closer to the end of 2026. Now let's talk about pricing, because the foldable iPhone price could be the part that shocks everyone. At Apple recently raised prices on MacBooks and iPads in response to rising component costs, and that's already put consumers on edge. So far, the iPhone 17 lineup has reportedly avoided a price hike, but many analysts believe Apple is setting the stage to introduce higher pricing across the iPhone lineup with the next major launches. And the foldable iPhone? That could be in an entirely different price universe. IDC reportedly expects Apple's foldable iPhone to land at an average selling price of around $2,500. Depending on storage configurations, some models could potentially reach $3,000. That would place the foldable iPhone Ultra in true luxury territory, more like a premium MacBook than a standard smartphone purchase. But Apple might be betting that the foldable iPhone isn't meant for everyone. Instead, it could be positioned as the ultimate iPhone, a halo product designed to show off Apple engineering, push the brand forward, and attract early adopters who always want the newest, boldest hardware. So what exactly are we expecting from Apple's foldable iPhone in 2026? Current rumors point to a book-style foldable design, meaning it opens like a mini tablet rather than flipping vertically like classic clamshell foldables. The rumored display sizes are a 7.8-inch inner display when unfolded and a 5.5-inch cover display on the outside for quick use when closed. If Apple gets the display quality right, brightness, color accuracy, and especially crease control, it could instantly become the most desirable foldable on the market. Another major rumor, Apple may use Touch ID instead of Face ID on the foldable iPhone. That's a surprising twist, but it could make practical sense. Foldables have less internal space to work with, and integrating Face ID hardware into a thinner, more complex folding design could be challenging. Touch ID could return as a power button sensor, offering fast unlocking without requiring a full facial scan system. Under the hood, the foldable iPhone is expected to feature Apple's A20 chip, which would make it one of the most powerful smartphones on the planet at launch. There's also talk of Apple including its own C2 modem, continuing the company's long-term shift toward deeper control over core wireless components. And now the big release timing question. When will the foldable iPhone launch? The strongest expectation is that Apple will unveil the foldable iPhone alongside the iPhone 18 Pro and iPhone 18 Pro Max in September 2026. If that happens, it would instantly become the headline of Apple's fall event, potentially the biggest iPhone announcement since the first Pro models or even since the original iPhone X redesign. And then there's the name Multiple. Reports have suggested Apple's foldable could launch as the iPhone Ultra. That branding would fit perfectly with Apple's current strategy: Ultra equals top tier, best materials, best performance, and the highest price. Just like Apple Watch Ultra and the Ultra positioning in other product categories, an iPhone Ultra would signal that this is not just another iPhone, it's the iPhone taken to the extreme. So what does Apple ramping foldable iPhone production to 10 million units really tell us? It suggests Apple is moving from prototype thinking to launch thinking. It suggests the hinge and design challenges are no longer stopping the project. It suggests supply chain commitments are being locked in. And most importantly, it suggests Apple believes there's a real market for a foldable iPhone, despite the premium pricing and the risk that comes with any first-generation product. Because if Apple actually delivers a thin, durable, premium foldable with iOS features designed for a larger, flexible display, it won't just enter the foldable market, it could redefine it overnight. The next few months will be critical. If suppliers are gearing up, parts are being booked, and production forecasts are rising, then Apple's foldable iPhone Ultra is no longer just a rumor. It's starting to look like an inevitable launch. And if Apple hits the quality bar people expect, September 2026 could become the moment the iPhone changes shape for the first time in a long time.